going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now,
Jimothy.
Now, ladies and gents, we are back with another deck profile, and we are very close to 200 subscribers. So if you're new to this video, from now, ladies and gents, I'm going to ask you, if you do enjoy this content, to hit that like button, that share button, and that subscribe button, and we'll definitely be taking you guys forward on this channel. So the profile that I'm going to do today for you guys is Generaiders. Now I'm going to precursor this with a little bit of a warning. This is not my take on the deck's final form, mainly because I've not long got a hold of all of the cards, plus I haven't had any real time to test the deck as it is. So this is kind of like a preliminary build until I get the rest of the deck sorted, and it's mainly the extra deck, to be honest, and a few obviously main deck staples that I'm still waiting on. So without wasting any more time, ladies and gents, let's get straight into the profile. Now, I've gone for the control variant of Generaiders, so obviously I'm going to be starting off with probably the most important that gets you plays going, which is Lupta, the Shadow of the Generator bosses. Fantastic card. Contribute one generator monster in order to special summon a generator from deck. So it literally just gets you exactly what you need from the deck and being able to tutor it out onto the field. So fantastic card. And the first choice probably is going to be Hard Generator Boss of Storms. Now, if you didn't know, ladies and gents, these are all level 9s, the big boss monsters, with Lupta being the only normal summon level 4 for the archetype. Now, majority of the level 9s, ladies and gents, they do have effects. Now, Har is probably the better of the generator monsters, mainly because it's got a Dark Claw type effect, by where if your opponent draws a card or adds a card from deck to hand, you can just make them send one card from their hand to the graveyard, which is really powerful. He's also a bit of an he is an Omni Negate, basically, by being able to tribute to generators or spellcaster monsters, and most of the cards have this, so you can actually play these cards in other decks, believe it or not. So yeah, definitely double Har. Double Hela, this is what you typically would use in the grind game, ladies and gents. Being able to grab your generator bosses out of the graveyard to then special summon them back onto the field to use whatever set effects is just absolutely fantastic. Hela's probably the second most important, basically because it can get Har at the graveyard, it can get your Lupta at the graveyard, and a majority of them you don't necessarily want to see more than one of them in your hand. So double Hela Generator Boss of Doom. Next up for the one-up generators, we're playing one Mardell, one Utgarda, and one Naglfar. They all serve their purpose, with your Mardell being the searcher of the deck. She can add any generator boss or generator card from your deck to your hand. So depending on what your field state is, and depending on whether or not you can get her on the board, you definitely want to either add your field spell, add one of the spells or traps, or even just add another generator monster. It could be another copy of Lupta, for example. So she's really flexible. Again, I don't really want to see her in my hand, so I'm running her at 1. Hela can easily get her out the graveyard if need be, and typically once you've got your board set up, you should be able to take control of the game. So yeah, Utgarda is just a nice banish. Again, it's another option just to remove some of the monsters on field if you can't beat over them. And Naglfar stops destruction, which is useful indeed. Next up for the rest of the one-ups, we're playing one Dvogus and one Nidhogg. Now, Nidhogg stops summons, which is useful by tributing generator tokens or worm monsters, and Dvogus allows you to special summon a generator from hand. Now, this I didn't actually used to play a lot. However, there was coming up situations where I actually needed him, and especially being able to get him out onto the field with World Legacy Monstrosity, and being able to activate his effect to special summon a generator from hand. It was just absolutely fantastic, especially as you could use himself as a tribute. So I used to think he was a bit lackluster, but actually he is quite useful, especially as a one-of, which is highly searchable in this deck. So yeah, one Dvogus in my opinion. You don't have to run him. It's probably one of the ones that you could definitely cut very easily. Right, next up for some non-generator support, I'm running 2 Trios Haryaka. This basically is a generator monster. So you contribute fairies or fairy monsters to be able to special summon this card onto the field, and depending on the number of tokens or fairy monsters that you tribute, it gets additional effects. So you get a pop, You also get the ability to draw a card, and you can activate this card from grave or from hand. So each turn your generator field spell generates tokens. You can actually use Trias Hierarchy as a bit of an interruption alongside whatever else you have on the field. So really useful, very useful card. I've considered dropping him down to 1 and putting something else in, but because of the COVID-19 situation, yada, post has been super slow. And like I said, I haven't tested this deck fully to its capabilities, but it is very useful indeed. Next, we are running double Condemned Witch. Allows me a little bit of a search, and you can actually tribute this on your opponent's turn to get Locta out of the deck. Also, it is another normal summon, ladies and gents, something that was a little bit lacking in Generaiders, and you would before the deck got its final rounds of support, well, up until this point that is, it used to brick a lot, mainly because you needed to take in other engines just to get your generator engine going, and Condemned Witch is one way of doing that. She also adds a quick play spell in the form of the Forbidden Chalice. You can also add Forbidden Droplets if you're lucky enough to own that card, but yeah, and you can also attribute it to get locked out of the deck, so definitely a decent normal summon from the deck. Next up for a staple, I love this card, Dinarus Pancratops. There's a reason why he's at 1, ladies and gents, because he is just that useful. He is always basically a 2-for-1 if you play your cards right. He can beat over something, and he can quick effect tribute himself just to pop something on field. So definitely a very good card, just in case you lose the die roll and you go second. Next, we're playing 2 Harpier Squadrons. This is just for a little tech that I've got in the extra deck to allow me to quick play fusion summon on my opponent's turn, just to bounce a card, and I will go through that as I go through the extra deck, but definitely 2 Harpier Squadron. And next, a sneaky little tech that I like to put in, and I believe I used this in the video that I posted previously when I was playing on EDO Pro. 1 Imbecilia lutea. So this plant monster basically stops targeting, and as long as you control another monster, it can't be destroyed by battle. So typically you're always going to control a monster once you play this card, especially if you've got your field spell up and running. So once you've got tokens on field, you've got the ability to do X, Y, and Z with this. But having this on field just to be able to protect your field spell from targeted effects, so Cosmic Cyclone is a no-no. It's just useful. Definitely a nice tech. It could easily be taken out and put in for something else, but I like this card, so I'm running it. Next up, ladies and gents, we are on to the spells. Now, probably the most important spell is the field spell. You all know what it does by now. Get a generator monster out of deck, special summon one onto the field, and then special summon tokens. It's useful. It's a free of. The deck functions around the field spell, so you need to keep this on the field and keep this live, and you'll be able to grind with your opponent. Typically, your opponent's going to go after that real quick because they know what it does. Right, I'm also playing double generator boss quest. You don't need 3 of these. It basically, after you've used it once, you probably don't need another one, but just as a bit of an insurance policy, should someone have some type of spell or trap negate, it's nice to just have another one to be able to just tutor out or put back some resources that you don't want in hand, and add 2 generator cards or spells and traps with different names from your deck to your hand. So very useful indeed. Next up, for some non-generator support, we are running Double World Legacy Monstrosity. This is an easy rank 9 XYZ, and you should be able to guess what type of rank 9 monster we are going to be making in this deck. The monster that every deck seems to be trying to make at the moment. So Double World Legacy Monstrosity. You could easily bump that up to 3, ladies and gents, but I'm playing the 2 and it hasn't been a problem. Double Forbidden Chalice. This is for my Condemned Witch search. Effect negation. You can also use it to just boost one of your monsters, which doesn't come up from time to time, but it can do, especially with Dragoon running around and not being able to actually deal with him effectively. But yeah, definitely Double Forbidden Chalice. Next, we are running double Kujikuri Curse. This is a nice draw engine for level 9 monsters. You can send it from hand or field, which is useful. So draw 2. And then finally, we're running 1 Book of Moon, 1 Horde by the Grave, because Ash hurts this deck immensely, and 1 Mind Control for going second. Again, these are quite easily interchangeable. If you wanted to put hand traps in, ladies and gents, you definitely could. My hand traps are somewhere in another deck. I don't know exactly where, but yeah, if you wanted to put hand traps in, you could, ladies and gents. These could be easily cut. And then now we are on to the traps. So we don't run too many traps in this deck. We basically run 2 Generator boss fight. So this allows you to activate a boss quest either from your deck or from your graveyard. Again, you could typically bump this down to 1 and put something else in, but like I said, this deck is, for me, it's still in process, and being able to just tutor out a couple of them should one get stuck for whatever reason is just, I just find value in it basically. So you could drop this out and add a draw engine and maybe even a upstart goblin, for example, but I like it at 2. Hasn't seemed to be an issue, to be honest, especially with boss quest being able to put it back. Next, we are running 1 Generator boss room. This is an interesting card. So basically what it says is when your opponent activates a card or effect in response to the activation of one of your generator cards or whatever, you can discard 1 card and your opponent activation becomes each player draws 1 card, which is useful. So basically if you activate HAR or you activate any of their abilities or effects, your opponent just can only respond by drawing a card basically, which then would trigger the field spell again. So interesting card. Again, this is what you search typically after you've got your setup, after you've got your field spell on board and your HAR on board. You definitely want to be getting your boss room just for a bit more control. And then finally for the traps, we are running 1 Fist of the Tenyi, because when you special summon your tokens onto the field, they are normal monsters, so this becomes live. Also, it's kind of like Awaken the Dragon, where you can get out Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon if you wanted to put that in your extra deck. And I'm running 2 I Said No, and no means no, Solemn Judgment. So that is it for the traps. On to the extra deck, ladies and gents. Now, like I said, this extra deck is not finished. So I haven't got all the pieces, but at the moment I'm running 1 Barricade Board Blocker. Allows me to get the field spell back out of the graveyard should I have run into any issues, and it only takes 2 monsters with different names. 1 World Gears of Theological Demiurgy, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically if you go into this card using monsters with different, it takes level 5 or higher monsters, but if you use different names and attributes, I believe, it's unaffected by card monster effects, which is useful, and it's just a big beat stick basically, and it's a nice link free to be able to go into. You can make this. What I would say, ladies and gents, another link that you could definitely put in here is Black Luster Soldier. I can't remember the name of it, but the Black Luster Soldier link does a hell of a lot of damage in this deck, especially as most of your monsters are going to be level 9 and higher. It just becomes big for no reason. You can banish cards off your opponent's field. So definitely something that I haven't got, but I would encourage you to put in if you do have it. Next, for a synchro option, I'm waiting on another one for this. Vulcan of the Divine. Now this is my target for Harpier Squadron. As you can see, it's a 6. Now when your field spell resolves, you get 4 tokens. The tokens are typically light fairy monsters level 4. So if you've got your Harpier Squadron in hand, you can actually quick play synchro summon from your hand using Harpier Squadron and one of your tokens, and go into Vulcan of the Divine. Now when this card is summoned, you can bounce a card on your field and your opponent's field back to the hand. So typically you bounce himself back and bounce one of your opponent's cards back to their hand, and it's just another interruption. And again, obviously I play 2 Harpier Squadrons, so you can actually do this twice in a duel should the duel be really grindy. So just a nice little bit of a tech. Next, we're playing at 1 Jormungandr Generator Boss of Eternity. There's a nice little combo here where you can actually use HAR and Jormungandr. So if you go into Jormungandr, both players draw a card and have to attach a card from their hand to this card, and this card gains 1,000 attack for each material underneath it. However, if you've got HAR on field, you can actually rip a card out of your opponent's hand, which means they basically go neutral for adding a card under here, and it kind of disrupts their hand basically, and he also puts you a big beat stick on the field. So definitely useful card. I like it at 1. You could actually play more than that. 1 Infinite Track Earth Slicer, 1 Phantom Fortress Enter Blafnir, and also 1 Nine Lives Cat. So this is interesting. So if this can special summon monsters from the graveyard by detaching materials, it has to be a level 9 monster in your graveyard. However, your opponent can't target cards special summon from the graveyard, which is really useful, especially if you want to go into, if you got Mardell in your graveyard, for example, and you want to get her back out onto the field to be able to do stuff. She is very useful. Enter Blafnir, I basically use it just to disrupt my opponent's hand or board. It just says banish 1 card from your opponent's hand, banish 1 card that your opponent controls. banish one card for your opponent's graveyard, or it's just crazy. Just banish, get rid of it. And then Infinite Track Earth Slicer, another bit of disruption, can attach materials and can attach the materials that it beats over basically as an effect, and you can detach materials on pop cards on your opponent's field. So again, the ratio of these, I've got 1, 1, 1, and 1. You can actually increase this if you wanted to. That's entirely up to you, ladies and gents. And then finally, we run this guy. We all know what he does right now. Game ender, auto win button, whatever you want to call it. This thing is just hella annoying. It's everywhere. And Generators is no different. Being able to go into rank 9s with ease and summon the true king of all calamities is just something that you're typically going to want to do to win a game, especially going first as well, alongside all your traps and spells that you would use to disrupt your opponent's play. So yeah. Well, that is it, ladies and gents. Like I said, there are a few more things that you could tech into the deck, and I could leave that up to you. In fact, there are some techs that I've missed, definitely get at me in that comment section below, ladies and gents, and just advise me on what I could include in this deck, because I've got a few things on the way, but obviously there could be a few more things that could go in there. And we've arrived at the end of another video. We are so close to 200 subscribers, I could smell it. And like I said at the start of the video, if you do like this content, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I will definitely see you guys on the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.